Alright, so I went back and I completely forgot this what if existed, and I realized, oh wait, I should probably finish this. So here it is, part 7, I think. Hold on, let me double check. Yeah, part 7 of What If Female Deku was Siren Head. So hold on. Now then, if I remember correctly, last where we left off was after the internships finished. So they'll be headed into their final exams as Izumi and you would be in everybody in class 1A would be at the final exam site where all the pro heroes would show up, as Izumi would be put on the same team as Bakugo. As Bakugo's just looking at Izumi as he's saying to himself, why would I want to work with a freak like her? As Izumi would just slam Bakugo's head into the ground, as she'd say, would you like to repeat that, Katsuki? As Izumi would then lift Bakugo back up. As everybody's teams would be as they were in canon, except for who Mineta was teamed up with. So I think I expelled Mineta, I believe. So you would be teamed up with Sero instead of Mineta. As they would then, Izumi and Bakugo would head into the city. As I believe it said in like one of Siren Head's abilities was shapeshifting. So Izumi basically turns her head from two sirens into a lampshade, as she'd be sneaking around the city, getting closer and closer to the exit, until All Might would notice this, as he would then throw a Detroit Smash, as Izumi would turn her head back to its original state and catch the punch, as Bakugo would come in and set off an explosion, which he was hoping would catch Izumi in the crossfire. As Izumi would basically be standing there, unfazed, same as All Might would send Bakugo into the ground, as Izumi would then shift into her red Siren Head state, as she would basically be pummeling. She would basically be pummeling All Might into the ground, as All Might would then use One for All to get around them, as he would then send Izumi into the ground, as Izumi then lets out a sonic shockwave, which sends All Might back a bit. As Izumi would then basically pick up Bakugo's unconscious body and move between the alleyways of the buildings, basically camouflaging herself. Hold on. Sorry about that. As Bakugo would eventually wake up and find that Izumi is basically carrying him, as he would say to her, I don't need your help, you damn freak. As Izumi would say, Bakugo, zip it. You'll need... Look, just because there's going to be a point when you're a hero, you are going to eventually work with somebody who has a mutation quirk, and sorry about that. Continuing forward, as Izumi would continue by saying, and they're not always going to have the same temperament as me. They are going to be more aggressive. They're probably going to be more aggressive and not end up knocking you to the ground if you ever try to do that. So if you ever try to talk down to them, so I suggest you keep your mouth shut. As Bakugo would feel an intense amount of bloodlust coming from Izumi, as he would stop. As They would then make it near the exit, as Izumi would make a break for it, as All Might would come down, crashing into them. As Izumi then punches All Might, sending him flying a bit, and tosses Bakugo through the gate as she then gets through herself, as they would both pass the final exam. And now on to how you Mount Lady passed her final exam. You would basically just grow giant and get over the smoke, the gas Midnight was emitting, and then just make it to the exit. Now, I did do like a little bit of research since the last part, and realized at where I had Siren Izumi working with the villains, I realized that Mount Lady was 64 feet and Siren Head was 15 feet. So having them at the same size was a bit cheap, but whatever. Anyway, continuing forward. As if we would now get to the force training camp, as it would then basically everything there goes as canon. They're having their conversations. Izumi's sitting next to you, because as we know, they're both in a relationship. As they would stop outside the camp, as then they were sent down the mountain by the Wild Pussycats. Izumi and you just grew giant and walked through the forest like it was nothing. As they would both make it to the campsite. As everybody else would make it to the campsite in the states they were in canon, Izumi and you did not even have a scratch on them. As Izumi would see Kota, as she'd go up to greet him, as Kota would try to punch her, with Izumi stopping the punch, as she would basically lift him up, as she'd say, it's not nice to attack people for no reason. As Mandalay would see this, as she would tell Izumi to drop him, as Izumi would let go of Kota, as he would basically drop to the ground, as he would then walk off. As Ida would try to reprimand him, as Kota would say, I don't even want to talk to you hero wannabes. As Izumi would have like a confused look on Kota's face. Sorry about that. As everything in the force training camp would go as canon, along with the quirk training. The onsen scene would be a bit different because you and Izumi are there, as they would be they'd be relaxing there, as Izumi would have heard Mineta climbing up the wall, as Izumi thinking, oh hell no, as she would basically make a high-pitched sound that only Mineta could hear, as Mineta would go to cover his ears, as he would then fall back into the onsen, into the boys' side. As Izumi would say out of nowhere, well, that's that problem solved. As all the girls would look confused, as they'd look over to her, as they'd say, what do you mean? As Izumi would say, she heard Mineta say, I heard Mineta climbing up the wall, so I sent a high-pitched screech only he could hear. So, and I'm guessing he went to cover his ears, and he just fell back into the water. So, problem solved. Sorry about that. Anyway, continuing forward. As, everything else will go to canon, including, the villains attacking the camp, but, Izumi would take care of Muscular a lot easier until she'd hear a loud noise that sounded like it was coming from a megaphone. As Izumi would have, as a lot of people who were there would have seen a cold sweat running down Izumi, as they would see this massive creature emerge from the forest, as it appeared to have a swollen stomach, 2 pairs of arms, is crouching and has the head of a megaphone. As while Izumi was standing there in sheer terror, Mr. Compress would have compressed Izumi down into a marble. As Mr. Compress would have said, "I got her, let's go." As he would have also compressed the He would have also compressed the megaphone head, as they would have went through the portal, as it would have closed behind them. As Izumi would have woken up in the League of Villains base, as Izumi would have said, "So, we're doing this again? Let me guess, you're going to try and get me under control again? I'm sorry, buddy, but that really won't work this time." As Shigaraki would say, "Oh, and why is that?" As she would say, "Because I can do this." As she would basically blare the no signal sound from her sirens. As that large amount of noise would have allowed the heroes to pinpoint Izumi's location, as, sorry about that, as All Might would smash through the wall, as he would have yelled, "I am he," as the villains would have been called like they were in canon, but, and they would have escaped like they were in canon, with Izumi being teleported away towards All For One. As All For One would basically be standing there, as he would try to take Izumi's quirk to use it against All Might, but Izumi quickly grows larger and goes into her red siren head state, as she would have smacked All For One out of the sky. As Mr. Compress would have released the megaphone head, as it would have sorry about that, as it would have allowed a loud blaring noise, as Izumi would have basically fallen to the ground and grabbing her ears. As the megaphone head began to lift her up, as it was about to eat her, but Mount Lady Yu comes out of nowhere and drop kicks the megaphone head, as Izumi would have uncovered her ears, as Yu and Izumi would basically begin tag teaming the megaphone head, as Izumi would eventually rip off one of its arms, as the megaphone head would scream out in pain, as Izumi and Yu would pin it to the ground, as Izumi would then repeatedly slam its head into the ground over and over and over and over, until the megaphone was basically in shambles, and his head was nothing but a bloody a bloody pool. As All For One would have lost his fight to All Might, like in canon. Sorry about that. As everybody would basically begin questioning what happened. As we then... And now we'll get into the arcs in Season 4. As we then open up with the... Actually, no, the provisional license exam that goes about as it did in canon. I'm sorry, I just really don't feel like covering in this part in this series because I really want to get this over and out of the way. Anyway, as Izumi would okay, we'll get into the overhaul arc. As we then Izumi is with Sir Nai's agency since plot reasons. As Eri would bump into her as she did in canon, as we then get to as Overhaul then walks out and says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about my daughter. We are just playing a game of hide and seek." As Izumi could immediately tell he was lying. But she decides to go along with it. As Eri then runs back to Overhaul like she did in canon. As we then get to the assault on the Shihisaki area. Base, yeah. As Izumi would basically be tearing through the main building and not the underground base. As Izumi would have uncovered the secret entrance into the Yakuza base due to her tearing the building up. As it would have then gone underground, Mirio would have lost his quirk like in canon. And Izumi would have fought against Overhaul. As this would go, the fight wouldn't go as it did in canon because I'm pretty sure Izumi does not have one for all in this. As he did actually defeat Overhaul fairly easily by sorry about that. As Izumi would basically be repeatedly slamming Overhaul's giant body into the ground and unleashing a ultrasonic screech, which would basically immobilize Overhaul. As the whole UA festival would go as it did in canon. As Eri would end up smiling. As we will end this part off here. I do really hope you guys enjoyed this series because it's been on pause for a long time. And for those of you who have made it to the end of this video, I'd like to show you guys something. Alright, so right here I have a list of what ifs that I have done and ones that I'm still to do, hold on, or am doing. So you guys can decide which ones you would like to see next. And I'll show you some that recommended ones I got on Discord, give me a minute. And here are some of the ones that were suggested on the Discord. So, like all this. So anyway, thank you all for watching and I'll see you all next time. Ta-ta!